Okay, so now I'm going to put in the elastic. I will send you the measurements for the elastic, though I know you don't have the elastic right now. So it's 8 inches for the legs. So I just need 2 8-inch elastic, and then it's a 14.5 for the 1-inch elastic for the waist. So now that that's cut, I should have 2 leg elastics at 8 inches and a 1-inch elastic at 14. So then I take my safety pin. Just like this, and start with the leg elastics. I'll just put one in to make it go faster. I find where my I'm gonna trim this thread, it's bothering me. So I find where my opening is here. If you pull it, it opens like this, but it won't look like that when we put the elastic through. And then I just tuck it down my side, and I feed it through until I get it almost to the end. And then I just throw a pin in here to hold it. And then I just keep on feeding it through, making sure that it stays flat and not all twisted inside. Okay, so now I've gotten both here. I lay them together. I take my pin out, and then I pull so that I have lots of room to sew them. I take out my safety pin, and then I just, from holding them flat, I take them and I lay them flat again, so that the entire loop is just flat inside. And then I take it and I just pop it here in my machine. And usually mess up a few times. It can be tricky, take some practice to keep it all like flat. So then I just sew it back and forth a bunch of times, usually 3-4 times, just to make sure that it doesn't snap apart. And then trim the threads, and when I'm done, it'll be still a flat loop. Make sure that it's as straight as you can get it, just because if it's on an angle, sometimes it pops off. So just give it a good few pulls to test. You don't want any leg elastics breaking, and then just pull it through. And it'll just look like a complete circle. And you can really, in the end, barely tell that that's there. But it helps us change elastics if someone needs an elastic replaced. And yeah, so that's the loop for that one. And then I do the same kind of thing with this. I take my elastic, I pop it in like this. I like to do it through 2, just so that I can know, like, I can keep it flatter, and it helps like give strength when I'm pulling it through. I just go in, I find where I've left my opening, just here, and then I pop it through. And it's the exact same thing as I did with the leg elastic. I pull it until I get to the end there, and then I just pin it and keep going. And then when I get to the end, I do the same thing that I did with the leg elastic there. So I just throw a pin in here, And then I keep on going. Here, just like this. So I'm just with my palm here. I'm just trying to make sure that the elastic stays flat, because there's nothing more crazy than having to pull an elastic out because it's gone all wonky and twisted. So I have some done here already. There we go. Okay. And then now I'm getting back to my opening here. And I just feed it out. Keep my seams flat again. Take out my safety pin and my pin pin. And now I have these two. Again, hold them so I got some room to work with. Flip it over and hold it tight. And then I just sew it. Just the exact same as I did with the other one. Back and forth, back and forth. Just try and get all over the elastic on this one because it's a little wider. Trim my thread there, and looks like this. So for the most part, it's like it's not going to go anywhere. You can go up and down if that makes you feel better. Listen, I just kind of do whatever here. And then I get it all situated in here. Make sure it's flat everywhere. No twists, no turns. Give it some good stretches. And then you have like a ruffle top. So you still have to sew up this seam here where you've left it open to get your elastic in. So I just throw it back through the machine, give it a couple, give it a little there. And then I just trim my threads inside and out. So just like that, and now we have a full one done. I'll get to this leg after, but just so you can see the way it's done. And then for our tag, our logo tag, I put it on the back, on the top where the seam is. And then trim my threads, front and back, and then I'll have a nice clean tag on the back. So then, with that, we also have to do the, we also have to add the tiny little strip to keep the tie on, and then the tie. So here is the tie. It's either going to come in one full piece, or if there's a seam at the back, you just have to serge serge the seam there. And then you'll have one full long piece here. It's quite long. So then I just take it and fold it in half. And I just serge it. Start with the side, or I should say, I guess, the edge. And then I just go. I straighten as I go. Make sure that it's flat. And when I get to about the halfway, the halfway point, I do the same thing I did for the casing. I just go off the edge, and then I give it about an inch, and then I go back on and finish my belt. And again on the edge there. And I just, for these, I don't do anything special for the edges on these guys. I just leave the thread out about an inch so that it can't unravel inside the belt. But I don't usually tie them. I just leave that space there. So they'll kind of look like this. And then now where I've left my opening, I just trim those guys down. And now I'm just going to turn my belt. So the long process, I shove my thumb in here, go all the way to the end, and then I kind of just use my finger to push it out. I don't know if you saw that. I'm going to try again. I've got my thumb here at the top. I just hold my finger here and then push it through. And now one half's done, and then I just do the same for the other side. If you've got some magical way of turning your belts, go for it. But this is just, I find the easiest way. I never lose my thumb, and I seem to always lose my tools. So same thing here. I just push it through, turn it, and now I've got my very long belt. So now for the seam, or the opening you've left, it shouldn't be very big. But what I like to do is I just throw a single stitch across it. You can barely tell when you're holding the belt because it's just so little, but I don't want it to come open. So I just make sure that I'm doing the least amount of sewing as possible and as close to the edge as it'll let me. So I have from here to sew. And I go back stitch, along the seam, back stitch, done. Of course, I snip my seams, or my seams, my threads. Okay, and so then it looks like this. Very little, very hard to tell. Just there to make sure it doesn't unravel. And then I just play with the belt until it gets flat. So I try and just make sure all my edges are there. You can iron if you want. I sometimes do just low heat, but often it ends up being flat enough because you're putting it into a bow. And yeah, I just, play until I get as flat as possible. And that's it for the belts. And now we'll put on the belt tie, or the little, the loop. So for the loop, I usually just use a scrap of whatever I have sewn with, but because I ran out of this, I'm just using a color that will coordinate with it. And so I cut out a big piece of my thread, just like this. And then I just take and I fold right sides together with my loop, with the thread inside. And then making sure I don't catch it, I just adjust it in there. And so when I'm sewing it, I'm leaving about this much. And you can see my thread here. Try and do it one-handed. Watch me fail. So then it comes all the way off. And I pull it. And now it's created a loop where I can easily turn it. So I pull the longer thread. And it should pull my belt loop with some adjusting here right through. And so now I have a long turned piece. Trim off my very long threads. And now I can put it on my belt. So I take my edge of the loop band I just made. I fold it over, very small amount. And then I just place it right where that seam is. And I go over it a few times. Okay, so then minus that, I trim the bottom. I just take the top and I trim off that ugly bottom. So that under I get this seam here. And then of course you want to do the thread inside. So it looks like this on the inside and this on the outside. And then I just take it and make sure it's flat, and then about half an inch to an inch or so, I just trim it. I never have the right measurement. I should just get the right measurement. Let's get it right now. About 2.5 inches if you're just cutting it off, because then you can trim as you go. And then I take the same thing and I just put it where the bottom of my is. I usually like to have it a little looser than this. I trimmed it a little too much, I think. So then, same thing, I go right where that line is. And I just go over, and over, and over. Don't want that coming loose. And now, mind you, a little bit tight than I like, just like a little bit looser. But anywho, this is what it looks like on the inside. And then you've got this loop on the outside. So our belt will sit right through here. For the belt, I take it, I put it right through. And remember, I had a seam here, but otherwise you can just measure it out where approximately half is. It sits through here like that, more or less. And then I'll just take and tie it. Or you guys can just leave it and I can tie it when I'm packaging. But anyway, a very rough, loose tie, just so you can kind of see. That is it. Except for the one leg, because I'm going to save time for that. So yeah, that's it.